And I was under the leadership of Pastor Bobby Young, who is deceased. And I believe I did my first sermon was the second Sunday in December of 2001. And I stayed there, and he made me youth pastor, and I had the whole family was there. I started the first choir that he ever had. We're on Lake Road in Lamar. And that Mother's Day of the next year in 2002, he allowed me to preach the Mother's Day sermon. I'll never forget it. And my sermon was, how you going to treat your mother tomorrow? Yeah. And because, Mother's Day, everybody can get their mama to come. Mama get anybody to come to church on Mother's Day. And you may see your son already say, it's Mother's Day, he come to church. And I went to sit down after that, and it felt like I sat on some hot coals. And I didn't say, I ran out of the church, and I didn't say nothing to nobody. I couldn't say nothing to nobody. I was hurting, because God was making me leave, and I was hurting because I was comfortable there. I was comfortable there. We had an awesome choir, I was comfortable. And, but sometimes jealousy comes into play. Amen. Come on. We had went out of town to Katy, I believe it was, to Pastor's son-in-law's church. And his name was Johnson, yeah. And I just the dance I sung and danced, this little lady danced with me for about 20 minutes. And Pastor Johnson, which was his son-in-law, said, he said, I'm a Johnson. But he told his father, he said, but you got a bad Johnson with you right there. And when those words came in, envy came in. And you cannot sit where envy is. You can't grow if the person you're under envy is. And I went home and I cried. And my wife, she didn't know why I left. I didn't know why I left either. All I did, I went home and cried. And I didn't know where I was going to go, because I wasn't accepted in other churches to do anything, really. And I got comfortable there. He was the only one that believed in me. When I said, man, God, I got to preach, he said, he on the counter said, what day? He didn't say, how you know you've been called. You know how you do people. He said, what day? He said, if God called you to preach, he gave you a day already. And I said, December the 9th. And that's the day it was on. And that Mother's Day, I left my home and I cried. And my son called and said, Mama, so he'll take it ready. I'm going to take y'all out to eat. He likes to take out the green road. Said, but we're going to take y'all to eat. And when he took us to eat, Bishop Mackers, I really wasn't eating no eating movies. I don't feel like eating, but I went anyway. Because the verse 7, we get him to do something. And on the way back, down the lady road, we drove into Highway 6. I looked over there and the name lit up, Temple of the Little Voices. And I told my wife, I said, that's what God wants me. You lost your mind. I said, no, that's what God wants me. And we found out that the lady that had the building, I told her, I said, God said. See, sometimes you got to be real with people. When you know God said it, you tell me, God said that he wants to let me have that building and for us to pay you $500 a month. Because when we left, Pastor Young gave me $665, I think we had in the camp for the choir. They gave me that money. And she said, well, Hitchcock School supposed to get it for storage. And they were going to give her $900 a month. I said, but God said that she was going to use that for a church, and we're going to pay you $500 a month. So she said, okay, let me talk to you later. I'll call you about 3 o'clock. I'll call her at 2 o'clock. Sometimes you can't wait for somebody to get back with you. And I didn't call her. I said, this is what I said to the lady. I never feel like this. I said, what did God say? She said, to let you have for $500 a month. So she was a Christian. And she knows she knew the voice of God. And we moved in there. And this was like the Monday after Mother's Day. And we came in there with about 17 of us. There was a lot of us. And when they had shells on the wall, we tore the shells down and had a pipe fitter named Deacon Gibson. He took the shells and made a pulpit. Yeah, the pipe fitter that became a carpenter. Amen. And we had Bible study that Wednesday night in there. And our first service was the Monday after Mother's Day. And that's how Temple of the Deliverance got started. We was at 8109 Highway 6. God left us there for 90 days. We didn't have anything. And God, after 90 days, the flea market was next door. So she moved across the street. And the lady, Miss Marshall, who owned the building, said, Pastor Johnson, she said, how would you like this side? I went over there and looked at it. And this was twice as big as the side we was on. I said, yeah, I like it. I said, but you might not be able to afford it. She said, can y'all afford it if I get it for the same price? So we got twice as much paid for the same price. Amen. And finally, had a little bit of area we could use for a kitchen, a little bit of area. But God was See, I look back at that, God was increasing us little by little. And we moved to 8111 Highway 6. And we stayed there for 9 years. 9 years. And God moved us here February, 3 years ago. Amen. And little did we know that my wife and I had actually came here for our 5th or 6th anniversary service. Pastor wife anniversary service, another pastor had it. And we sit in that corner, right over there on the drums at. But there weren't no drums at that time. And I told her, I said, man, this sure would be nice to own this. I was trying not to be covered, because somebody else was already in there. But I just thought it would be nice to own this. And sometimes I'm still learning the power of the spoken word. The other pastor that was in here stayed here for like 3-4 years. And the church that threw him out called him back. I was so glad. And he called me and said, Mr. Johnson, he says, I'm going back to Texas City. He says, I'm moving out of the Lions Club building and I'm going to leave all the pews in there. First he said, you know anybody needs the pews? And I had been in. I said, no, these pews 16 feet long. I ain't know anybody need no pews this long. And then he said, I talked to the people, and if you wanted it, you can get in there. And I said, man, I might not be able to afford it. And I believe I'm not mistaken, when we first got here, it was $400 a month. We were paying less for this than it was over there. And eventually went up to $500 a month. And then October of last year, after 9 months of God dealing with the Lions Club members, in 2012, Lamar Lions Club recruited some black members. They had never had any black members before 2012. And we had started the Hunger Solution Center. And we fed close to 3,000 people for free without any help from the government. And it was an elderly white gentleman in Texas City named Gil Goodwill that I took his lunch to him every day. And I would listen to his boring story. Everybody in his family did but him. But he was the man that I paid the rent to, Bishop Lecter. I didn't always have it on the 15th. I didn't always have it on the 5th. But we would always come up with it in the month. And I would take it to him. And I would listen to him. And so when the Lions Club decided to sell, he came to me and called me and said, Bishop, Pastor Johnson, he said, we decided to sell the building and the property. He said, and some African Americans, some of us. He said, some African Americans that joined the Lions Club said they want to buy for their church. He said, but I told them I want you to have it. But you ain't got no money. And so all of a sudden, the president of the Lions Club called me trying to figure out how to put this in our hands, and we ain't got no money. And they had it appraised at $135,000. There's 3.8 acres of land here. And this building for $135,000. And I sat on that porch out there, and I just looked up and I said, God, I don't want to move no more. See, sometimes when you get a good relationship with God, you ain't got to pray no hard on prayer. See, I got a good relationship with him now. And I just got to say, Lord, I don't want to move no more. And I got a call a week later. They said, well, we decided to knock $50,000 off. We're going to let you have $85,000. He said, but Mr. Gill said, you got $85,000. I'm laughing like I was laughing. I'm laughing, but the man wasn't lying. He said, so I got to go back to the drawing board. He called me back 2 weeks later and said, we decided that you have it if we come up with 10% down, but Gill said, you probably ain't got 10%. Little did I know that this man that I was taking these lunches to, spending his time and making a friend with, and I asked Mr. Click, which is the president of the Lions, I said, what is Mr. Gill to the Lions Club? And he said, Mr. Gill is the oldest living member of the original Lamar Lions Club. So the man's roots go real deep. And his voice carried a lot of power. And he said, I got to please Gill. I got to please Gill. And he called back, he said, we decided to come up with 5%. That's like $4,500, right? He said, but Gill said, you ain't got no $4,500. I mean, they went down to 5%. I'm just thinking how God was working with these people to get this in our hands. And God was using this man as my mouthpiece. And one day I was in Houston, around 1960, and I was eating a $4. I know y'all see my Facebook page. I some breakfast I be posting, amen. Biscuit and gravy, hash browns, and eggs. I do that every Thursday. And I was eating a $4 breakfast at Dennis, and a young man that was in there was working real hard. And I kept, you know how people get their attention, they're working hard. And people that he wasn't even waiting on was tipping him. And I'm tripping. And I'm eating, all of a sudden God said, bless me with $50. I said, that can't be God. Can't be God. I'm eating a $4 bread. And he asked me, does that boy say, bless me with $50? This man, I struggle. I don't know if God could ever get us past the money issue, we're going to be all right. I struggled with that. I went and washed my face, trying to get that voice out of my head. I don't know if y'all ever done that before. You know, when you know God told you, it ain't feeling good right now. And I went and sat back down and I watched him some more. And I said, man, I ain't eating no money. And I started trying to eat. And all of a sudden, God took me appetite. And by this time, Bishop McGriff was tired because I was wrestling with God through this whole process about 30, 40 minutes. You know? And then I just called, I said, brother, come here, what's your name? He said, Kevin. I took a deep breath. I still ain't really want to let me money go. I took a deep breath and I put it out there. God told me to bless him this. And the young man started crying. Because his children, he got 3 of them. They use some children. You never know what somebody needs when God tells you about. This was on a Thursday. That Friday night, I told my wife how I struggled with when I left about it because I passed the test. It was just hard. But I passed the test. But God said, give me $10, I want to get no problem. But God wanted to see if I was going to be obedient. But I learned, Bishop McGriff, that God will never ask us to do something that we cannot do. It ain't like I didn't have it in my pocket, but I didn't want to plan on giving it away.
All right.
That Friday night, me and my wife were laying in bed at 8 o'clock at night. Now, y'all know all businesses, most of them closed at 8 o'clock. The club may just be open up, but the business is closed. And I got a phone call, and I looked at my phone and said, Jack Click, what do you want this time of night? And he said, Pastor Johnson, I said, yes, sir. He said, this is it, man. He said, this is the final straw. He said, could y'all come up with $650 a month? I didn't know if we could or not, but I said, yes. Sometimes you got to step out on faith, Pastor Pat. I said, yes, sir, I believe we can. He said, can you come up with $75 a month to pay the insurance? And I'm trying to add the people and the money, and it ain't matching. It just wasn't matching. And I said, yes, sir, we can. Because we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And the man said, well, I tell you what, we had a meeting and we decided if you can come up with $650 a month and pay the insurance $75 a month, that we're going to let you have it for no money down. I got it. And I thought about, what if I had to pass that test the day before? God reminded me that when I release something on the earth, he releases something from heaven. Amen. I feel like that's somebody right there. Amen. And we're going to, I believe now my prayer, Lord, let me live long enough to see it paid for. But I thank God for the young people he sent because they're going to, one day they're going to have a job, they're going to be paying tithes, they're going to have to pay the rent here, all that kind of stuff, pay the note. And I'm going to sit right over there and look at it. Amen. Because this is not mine. I've never claimed this. This is ours. You know? I told my wife, I said, we can't run nobody out though. If we do, you're going to be paying the rent. We need everybody. Amen. Amen. And then so, like Mr. Paul, every time he requests a song, I told him $10. You know? Gotta get paid some kind of way, man. Amen. But you can go back to the church, anyway. Amen. But that's basically the history of how God got us off of Highway 6 to over here, from ready to own. Amen. And I